welcome to this deep dive. Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we are exploring a profoundly challenging, really paradigm-shifting philosophical essay.
Yeah, it's a big one.
It really is. It was written in March 2022 by Sufing, and it's titled How to Break Free from Mental Fallacies, specifically Part 2. And we've gathered this text along with, its surrounding philosophical context.
Right, the broader framework.
Exactly. And our mission today is straightforward, but honestly massive. We are going to challenge literally everything you might think you know about ambition, love, and what it actually means to live a successful life.
And, to even begin that challenge, we really need to establish the foundational premise of the source text. It all rests on this one crucial distinction between life written with a lowercase l and life written with an uppercase l.
A lowercase l versus uppercase l.
Right, and according to the author, merging these two totally distinct concepts into one singular experience is, well, it's the ultimate mental fallacy that humanity suffers from.
So we are separating the daily experience from something much, much larger. But what does that distinction actually look like in practice?
Well, the text views our current day-to-day existence, the lowercase o life, as merely a brief, fleeting biological moment. It is incredibly temporary.
Okay.
Uppercase o life, on the other hand, represents the overarching, eternal, non-material journey of the spirit or consciousness. And the fallacy occurs because we just lack an understanding of the profound mysteries of that uppercase of life.
We just don't see it.
Exactly. We don't grasp the true nature of time and space, so we mistakenly view this brief material moment as the entirety of existence. We treat the physical appearance of the world as, the ultimate reality.
So what does this all mean for us? Are human beings basically actors getting this script completely wrong? Because it sounds like we are walking onto a stage to perform a tiny, insignificant scene, but we're acting as if our 3 minutes on stage is the entire 3-hour production.
That analogy captures the author's point perfectly. We are taking the props on the stage far, far too seriously. Because we confuse the material world, which the text calls a mere manifestation or appearance, for the true non-material reality, we ultimately end up performing these tragic dramas on the stage of life.
Tragic dramas, yeah.
We pour our blood, sweat, and tears into accumulating things that only exist in the brief lowercase soul scene, completely ignoring the overarching narrative of the uppercase L epic.
I see. So if we are constantly confusing the material appearance for the true reality and investing all our energy into those stage props, there must be a trap we are all falling into.
Oh, absolutely.
Which naturally brings us to the text's central warning about attachment, right?
Yeah, and the trap is massive. The author uses a vivid and honestly somewhat terrifying analogy of a fish to explain the mechanics of how attachment works.
Fish?
Yeah, imagine a fish freely roaming the vast rivers, lakes, and seas. In that state, it possesses total freedom of movement, is completely unburdened.
Just swimming around, doing its thing.
Right. But then it spots a delicious, fragrant piece of bait hanging in the water.
The bait being the material rewards of this world, obviously.
You got it. Driven by biological instinct and acute desire, the fish rushes up and swallows the bait in one gulp. And the mechanism of the trap is instant.
Wow.
In that exact fraction of a second, its freedom is completely eradicated. It transitions from a free creature of the ocean to becoming, meat on the angler's chopping board. The desire for a momentary reward completely overrides its situational awareness.
What makes that scenario so insidious is the psychological state of the fish. The fish doesn't realize it's trapped until the hook is set.
Nope, not at all.
For a brief second, it just thinks it won a free meal.
Yeah.
It's experiencing self-satisfaction right as it seals its doom.
Exactly.
Let's put this in a real-world context for you, the listener, because we see this play out in corporate culture every single day.
Oh, constantly.
Think of someone who fights tooth and nail for a massive promotion. You grind for years, you endure immense stress, you sacrifice your weekends, and you finally get that massive corner office.
You made it.
Right. You sit in that leather chair, look out over the city, and feel totally satisfied. You literally think, I made it.
What's fascinating here is how the author directly applies this exact behavior to human pursuits. The text specifically calls out modern historical figures, noting how those who have gained massive fame in the fields of wealth and power are essentially just fish that have swallowed the bait.
Just fish on a hook.
But the author turns the mirror on ordinary people, too. The person sitting in that corner office is entirely unaware that they are now trapped.
They're working 80-hour weeks, missing their children growing up and living in this constant anxiety of losing their position to the next up-and-comer.
Yeah, the stress is unbelievable.
They think they're the king of the world, but essentially they are resting comfortably on what the text refers to as the devil's chopping board. They traded their freedom for the bait.
The underlying mechanism here is that the relentless striving for brilliance requires deep attachment. To make your lowercase life brilliant in the eyes of society, you must anchor yourself to making money, gaining power, or achieving status.
You have to tie yourself down to it.
Exactly. And the tragic irony the author highlights is an inverse relationship. Like, while your lowercase life shines brightly in that material attachment, your uppercase L life perishes in it.
It dies.
Yeah, the spiritual energy required for the eternal journey is completely drained just to maintain the illusion of the material world.
And that dynamic makes total sense when we talk about corporate greed or political ambition. We all recognize the miserable billionaire trope.
Oh, sure.
But applying that logic to something inherently good, like human connection, requires a deeper look. Because surely the text doesn't view love, romance, or family as a trap.
Well, it actually does.
Wait, really?
Yeah, and this is where the text heavily challenges our most deeply held cultural values. The author argues that attachment to absolutely anything, including marriage, family, the nation, political parties, religions, or even high-minded ideals, causes the flower of life to wither.
Wow.
The object of attachment doesn't matter. The act of attachment itself is the mechanism of the trap.
So passion itself is the problem.
Yeah. The text explores this through what it calls the one-on-one phenomenon. Think of a couple deeply, madly in love. They operate under a mentality of, non-her, he won't marry, non-him, she won't marry.
Like the soulmate idea.
Exactly. They feel as though the sky will literally collapse if they are separated. And the author does not deny the power of this phenomenon.
Well, here's where it gets really interesting. The text actually acknowledges that this intense attachment brings about a deeply romantic and sweet period. The lovers reach what feels like the absolute pinnacle of human experience. It feels magical.
It does. But the magic, however, relies on unsustainable hyperfixation. As the years pass, the inevitable erosion of daily life begins.
The reality sets in.
Right. The chores, the bills, the routines of the material world begin to wear down that peak experience. Because the couple has invested all of their spiritual and emotional energy into this single attachment, it slowly transforms from a romantic embrace into a binding rope.
A binding rope. That is such a striking image. The embrace literally becomes a straitjacket.
The physiological and psychological reality of this is tunnel vision. Because the lovers are so fixated on this one single attachment, expecting this one person to be their entire universe, they neglect the broader tapestry of existence.
They shut everything else out.
The text argues that this excessive attachment blinds them to all the other breathtaking scenery of life. The universe requires expansive connection, but they have chosen constricted isolation.
They miss the entire forest because they are obsessively watering a single tree.
That's a great way to put it.
And the result of that constriction sounds incredibly melancholic. I mean, the text paints a picture of these lovers reaching old age, realizing they missed countless opportunities to appreciate other forms of beauty and connection.
Yeah, it's sad.
They end up presenting a smiling face to the world while hiding a profound sense of helplessness and endless lamentation beneath it.
And that endless lamentation is the direct result of starving the uppercase all life. The spiritual journey was halted to maintain the binding rope of the lowercase all relationship.
Which honestly forces us to ask a very logical question for everyone listening. If these attachments, whether to the corner office or the all-consuming romance, consistently end up feeling like exhausting traps, why hasn't humanity learned this lesson yet?
That is the million-dollar question.
Right. We have thousands of years of recorded history detailing these exact regrets. Why do we keep repeating the cycle?
The author addresses this cycle of ignorance with a brilliant parable about mountain climbers. Imagine an old man who has just finished the arduous task of climbing a massive mountain.
Okay, an old man coming down.
He is descending, and on his way down, he runs into a group of eager young people excitedly making their way up the trail. The old man looks at them and imparts his hard-won wisdom. He says, "There is nothing worth seeing at the mountaintop. The view is actually even better down below."
But of course the young people reject the warning. Every young generation possesses this illusion of exceptionalism.
Always.
They assume the elder simply lacks the capacity to appreciate the journey, or that the rules of gravity won't apply to their specific climb.
The ego basically demands that they experience the struggle firsthand. So the young people keep climbing, they strive, they endure the elements, and eventually they reach the peak. But the mechanism of time has worked against them.
Time always wins.
In the process of that exhausting climb, they have grown old. As they stand at the summit, looking at the barren rocks, they realize the old man was entirely correct. The material reward at the top is completely empty.
And then the cycle resets. The newly aged climbers begin their descent, they encounter the next fresh-faced generation heading up, and they issue the exact same warning. There is nothing up there, stay in the valley. And the new climbers simply roll their eyes and push past them.
This perfectly encapsulates the stubbornness of human nature. The parable illustrates how we endlessly repeat this cycle of futile striving, stretching from the distant past into our present and projecting into the distant future.
It's endless.
We are trapped because our attachment to the idea of the mountaintop blinds us to the reality of the exhaustion it takes to get there.
But according to the text, climbing these metaphorical mountains doesn't just result in fatigue or disappointment. The consequences of our attachments are fatal. We are literally orchestrating our own undoing.
The philosophy here reaches its ultimate logical conclusion. Obsession leads to destruction. The very things we attach ourselves to in order to find security are the actual instruments of our demise.
The ironies listed in the text are profound. Serious people die from their seriousness. Extremely clean people die from cleanliness.
Yeah. People who desperately seek longevity die prematurely from the pursuit itself. Those who crave political power are destroyed by political power. But wait, I want to push back on one specific example the author uses.
Sure, go ahead.
The text claims that a nutritionist will die of nutrition. From a biological standpoint, how does a nutritionist die of nutrition? That feels like a paradox inserted just for poetic effect.
This raises an important question about the hidden psychological burden of hyperfixation. Let's really unpack the mechanics of that paradox.
Please do.
When a person becomes obsessed with one singular aspect of life-like perfect nutrition, they lose sight of the holistic nature of living. The stress of perfectionism, the chronic anxiety over consuming the wrong micronutrient, and the rigid categorization of every single meal creates a severe physiological toll.
Okay, that makes sense. The sheer volume of cortisol pumping through their system from the stress of trying to control every variable ends up damaging their heart.
Exactly.
The nutrition doesn't kill them. The attachment to the concept of nutrition kills them. The exact same mechanism applies to the excessively clean person whose immune system weakens because it is never allowed to interact with the natural world.
Right.
Or the longevity seeker who spends their entire life so terrified of death that they age themselves prematurely through chronic stress. The philosophical weight of this argument is that hyperfixation blinds us to the natural flow of life.
It's suffocating.
It really is. It turns a healthy practice into a fatal obsession, effectively destroying the larger journey of uppercase life by suffocating it with control.
You squeeze the bird so tightly to keep it safe that you end up crushing it.
Precisely.
So if we step back and look at the landscape the author has painted, we are left in a very precarious position. Striving for wealth makes us meat on a chopping board. Loving intensely binds us in ropes. Focusing deeply on our specialties literally kills us.
Sounds pretty bleak when you list it like that.
It really does. What is the alternative? How do we exist in this world without falling into these traps?
Well, the text doesn't just offer a critique, it provides a clear antidote. The author lays out the ultimate solution for navigating existence, which requires a complete release of attachment. It is referred to as the path of sublimation.
Okay, let's break down this path of sublimation, because the author provides 4 distinct pillars for how to actually execute this in daily life. Pillar number 1, take things as they are.
The mechanism behind this pillar is energy conservation. By releasing the need to control the outcome, you stop fighting the current of reality.
You just let go.
Yeah. If you lose an opportunity, you accept the material world's manifestation without letting it dictate your inner peace. The psychological energy you would normally waste on friction and frustration is instead preserved and redirected toward the growth of your uppercase life.
You remove the resistance completely. Pillar number 2 addresses the binding rope we discussed earlier. Associate with others by following naturally come-and-go relations.
This is all about reducing emotional debt. Instead of forcing relationships into rigid artificial structures, demanding loyalty, or attempting to possess another person, you allow connections to form and dissolve organically.
No more binding ropes.
Exactly. You appreciate the scenery of another person when their path crosses yours, and you let them continue on their journey gracefully when it's time for them to leave.
It is a radical shift from, "you must never leave me," to, "I honor the time we share." I love that. Pillar number 3. Act in accordance with one's intrinsic nature.
This pillar requires you to tune into your fundamental resonance rather than performing a role assigned by society. You stop climbing the mountain simply because the culture dictates that the peak is where success resides.
You chart your own course.
You align your actions with your genuine self, entirely separate from the bait of status, fame, or external validation.
And finally, pillar number 4. Take advantage of opportunities as they organically arise.
The key concept here is organically. Forcing an opportunity usually requires manipulation of the material world, which just ties you closer to it. This pillar is about maintaining enough presence and situational awareness to recognize when a door naturally opens and walking through it without attachment to the outcome.
Just feeling it out.
You flow with the non-material current rather than trying to engineer it.
So, if we synthesize these 4 pillars, taking things as they are, allowing natural relationships, honoring your intrinsic nature, and acting on organic opportunities, we essentially arrive at a state of active non-attachment.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, living this way is not nihilism.
No, not at all.
It is not giving up on existence. The text asserts that this is the ultimate method for the sublimation and uplifting of life. By letting go of the heavy material attachments of this brief lowercase law scene, we detach our ego from the material manifestation. We actually prepare our uppercase law life for its next grand journey.
We stop weighing down our eternal consciousness with the props from the stage.
Perfect way to frame it.
To bring this all together for you listening today, we have covered immense ground. We started by identifying the bait dangling in our daily routines, the hollow pursuits of wealth and status that trade our freedom for a spot on the chopping board.
Yep.
We explored how even beautiful human connections can morph into binding ropes when we suffocate them with intense attachment. We recognized the exhausting, cyclical nature of human ignorance on the mountainside and the fatal ironies of our own hyperfixations.
And ultimately, we arrived at the path of sublimation, a life that flows organically, conserving its spiritual energy rather than squandering it on the illusions of the material world.
But before we sign off, there's one final thought we want to leave you with, something for you to mull over on your commute or your walk today. It builds directly on the author's early assertion that the material world is merely a manifestation, a reflection of the non-material world.
Right. And if that is true, and we actually heed this advice, if we release all our earthly attachments, start trying to force our wills upon our lives, and start living according to this natural flow, how would that fundamental shift in human behavior change the very shape and reality of the non-material world we are supposedly preparing for?
That was heavy.
If the material reflects the non-material, does changing our reflection actively redesign the architecture of eternity? We will leave you to ponder that.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time. Keep questioning the stage you're standing on.